Hello and welcome. You're watching Business Plus. I'm Shweta Kothari. We're starting this bulletin with our top story, and that is coming by the way of semiconductor technology. Technology firms will soon be able to avail 50% financial assistance for setting up semiconductor manufacturing facilities in the country. Prime Minister Modi has said, announcing government's intent to roll out a red carpet for semiconductor industries in India. The government is going all guns blazing to woo semiconductor makers to India. Speaking at Semicon India 2023 conference in Gandhinagar, Prime Minister Modi said that India is establishing an entire ecosystem for semiconductor industry to grow in the country. Now, this is much awaited for semiconductors. Remember, fire up all tech and electronic items from cars to phones to TVs. Currently, India imports 100% of its semiconductor needs, spending about $24 billion annually. So this makes us wholly dependent on imports for our need. How far have we come to arrive at our semiconductor ambitions? How far are we from achieving them? Let's quickly understand. Joining us is Krishnamurthy, who is the President and CEO of India Electronics and Semiconductor Association. But before we go to Krishnamurthy, my colleague Karthik Malhotra joining us here in the studio. Karthik, good afternoon.
Hi, Shweta.
India is trying its best. Prime Minister Modi now coming out finally and saying that there is a red carpet, we're giving you subsidies, please come to India and set shop.
So, Shweta, I don't see this as being anything new, apart from, of course, the fact that, yes, this is the first Semicon India 2023 being inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Every time the Prime Minister speaks, it's obviously headlines. But in terms of pure news value, if you remember, December 2021 is when India had rolled out its ambitious plan for making India self-reliant when it comes to semiconductors. And there was an outlay of 76,000 crore rupees back in December 2021, $10 billion equivalent back then, which did not find too many takers. And over time, that policy, the scheme also got revised. Initially, it was a range-bound incentive of anything between 30% to 50% of the total cost to be taken by the government by way of the PLI, the performance-linked incentive scheme of the government, which got extended to semiconductors to a value of 76,000 crore rupees or $10 billion. Now, thereafter, it underwent a change subsequently in the month of March, where there was a straight cut 50% and no range of 30 to 50%, which means it became a 1:1 incentive. For every dollar spent by the private sector to develop integrated circuits, fabs and semiconductors in India, the same component, the same $1 would be paid for by the government of India. And this, of course, took a lot of, offtake in terms of multiple Indian as well as international companies wanting to assure their presence in the India semicon industry. This included the Foxconn Vedanta joint venture, which then fell through. But both of them independently looking for and hoping to find technology partners with whom they could independently set shop. When Prime Minister Modi was in the US earlier, he did in fact manage to get some sort of an inclination from companies like Micron and Allied Industries, Allied Materials, which have made commitments to invest in India. And for Micron, for example, as per estimates by the CEO Sanjay Mehrotra, the investment could be as high as $2.75 billion. And this is Micron's investment plus the government's, added 50% stake. Put together, we're talking about $2.75 billion. And that should make manufacturing fabs, assembling fabs in India that much more realistic, that much more sooner. The Micron plant is likely to set to be operational in about 2 years or so, and likely to generate about 5,000 jobs. Over time, take that number up to 15,000 jobs. Speaking specifically about, let's say, the Vedanta, investment in semiconductors, Anil Agarwal, the CEO of Vedanta, has come on record today on the sidelines of the Semicon 2023 and said that the Vedanta plant would be up and running, manufacturing in the next 2.5 years. So overall, the industry has been hot. Overall, we have seen that, dependence on international players to provide for our semiconductor needs, whether those go into automobiles, whether they go into electronics, whether they go into any other, allied field. We want to reduce our dependence and become that much more independent.
Absolutely. And we want to become independent. How far are we from achieving that? Let's understand from K. Krishnamurthy. who is currently, I'm given to understand, at Semicon. Mr. Murthy, good afternoon. Thanks for speaking to News9. I want to begin by understanding what exactly is happening at Semicon. If you could quickly run us through how the day has been for you.
Well, it has been extremely an exciting day, I would say, with the capacity crowd itself. I never seen an event where technology crowd of this size, about 4,000 people assembled in Mahatma Mandir here in Gandhinagar. And the interesting part was the presence of all the global majors who are planning to start their manufacturing related activities in India. Foxconn was there, Vedanta was there, Micron was there, Applied Materials, Lam Research, and I think every single company who has a stated position of manufacturing were all present there. And not only the manufacturing companies, but also the companies who are planning big time expansion for their design capabilities. I mean, the announcement by AMD was, an absolute stunner, so to say. So overall, a highly exciting and energizing day for any electronics and semiconductor professionals in the country.
So, Mr. Murthy, we are given to understand that artificial intelligence is something that AMD is betting on, and in fact, not just AMD, the rest of the world is betting on, and the equipment that drives this artificial intelligence, the servers, they are largely dependent, of course, on semiconductors, just like any other CPU or GPU. So, in terms of not just AMD, overall, what is the kind of mood that you have picked up in terms of real investments coming into the sector? Not lip service, not perhaps just MOUs being signed, but real investment coming into Gandhinagar and into India's semiconductor industry. Do you see some tangible movement?
See, the artificial intelligence segment in any application is going to drive a lot of innovation when it comes to semiconductors. The conventional processors which have been used for compute purpose, they are not the ones which are going to drive the artificial intelligence related applications. Well, I mean, it does not matter which segment of industry we are talking about. It can be automotive, it can be consumer electronics industry 4.0. The AI processors are going to be highly customized, special breed of processors. And this is where many of the processor companies like AMD, like Qualcomm, they are all going to bet big time on. And that's definitely going to a big game changer, because the more or the better your artificial intelligence capabilities are on your processing chip, the better is going to be your adaptability to the changing circumstances. Right. So that's going to be a game changer for sure.
Sure. Sir, for the sake of our audience, if you could just help us simplify this whole, understanding of semiconductors. What we understand as lay people is that, of course, artificial intelligence, which run on servers, which have to process large amounts of data, is one obvious beneficiary. Automobiles have faced semiconductor shortage that saw waiting period go up, prices go up. That is a second logical beneficiary. Electronics, cell phone manufacturing, these are smartphones. These are obvious use cases of semiconductors. Is this all, or are we missing something here?
No. See, if you really look at the entire food chain of semiconductor, there are 5 major components. Number one is a design, where India is very strong. And 22% of the global semiconductor workforce comes out of India today. 22%. And the second one is, sorry?
22% of the global semiconductor workforce.
22% of the global workforce in semiconductor design is from India today. And the second one is the wafer fabrication. And wafer fabrication is what we talk about in manufacturing as the fab. And the third one is when from the wafer, we create assembled packaged devices, so assembly and packaging, what we call ATMP or OSAT. Then it goes to the warehouse, and then it gets distributed globally to the phone manufacturers and laptop manufacturers and TV manufacturers, etc. So from a layman's standpoint of it, there are 4 different segments that need to be covered for a chip to come out and in volumes. Right. So out of this, India has definitely become a world leader when it comes to design. Now, Micron has announced their memory assembly and test packaging plant in Gandhinagar in Gujarat. Right. And definitely the next one that will happen along with this is the supply chain management and warehousing, etc., which is not very simple. It's a very highly automated, complex warehouse management and supply chain systems. Then comes the wafer manufacturing, and wafer manufacturing requires a significant amount of ecosystem to be put in place. When I say significant, for a silicon wafer to be manufactured, you require something like 150 different chemicals, metals, minerals, gases, and water and electricity. I mean,
Right.
so this is now beginning to come together, and the first location where we all expect that this will come together in a big volume kind of manufacturing is in Dholera in Gujarat. So that's why this particular conference is also very significant from that point of view, where Gujarat government, the chief minister himself, said that we are doing everything that is required to make this silicon manufacturing, what you call city of Dholera come up pretty soon.
Okay.
So
In terms
that's
of,
the second significance of this conference.
Right. In terms of, so I understand, sir, you were there when Prime Minister Modi was speaking and other dignitaries shared their views and their vision on stage. In terms of policy, was there anything new, anything different, anything significant that came out? Because we understand that December 2021 is when the 76,000 crore rupee or the $10 billion allocation to semiconductors was announced as part of PLI. And thereafter, it eventually graduated to becoming a 50-50 contribution between government of India and the private industry. So has anything changed, anything evolved, anything moved from all the policymakers who spoke at Semicon today? Mr. Murthy, are you with me?
Mr. Murthy, can you hear us? Mr. Murthy,
I'm not
could
able
you-
to hear.
Yes. I think you muted yourself. So I think what my colleague essentially was alluding to the fact that since the mega $10 billion PLI incentive for semiconductor industry was announced, has anything moved substantially on ground? Could you please unmute yourself, sir?
I think there seems to
All
be
right,
some
so there
network
seems to be
issue there.
some sort of technical snag with Mr. Murthy. We'll try and get him back. And that is my concern. Also, I think something that I think we were discussing prior to this bulletin, and that is, it appears that despite all the lip service, which is all that is so far, nothing seems to have really moved. The JV between Vedanta and Foxconn fell through. Foxconn says we have at least 3 technology partners. Vedanta today said we have an MOU signed with a significant technology partner, but nothing really on ground so far, no movement at all.
I agree, Shweta, but I also believe at the same time, and as I understand, these are large investments we're talking about. So for any private player, domestic or international, to put in $1 billion worth of investment requires research, requires time, requires understanding of the lay of the land, to understand the policy, to understand the infrastructure requirements and the availability of labor, of land, of water, of gases, of other materials that go into setting up of this manufacturing process, both for wafers as well as fabs. I think it requires a little bit of time to understand and then ensure that, yes, you would want to park your investments in a geography like India. Parallelly, what is also happening, Shweta, and I think that's important to understand, is that the world does not want to invest in China anymore. And we've seen big brands from across different sectors of business, from, let's say, Tesla's Elon Musk wanting to set up the second Asian plant in India, to the likes of Apple moving manufacturing from China to India. So in this whole China plus one context globally right now, India becomes a fairly obvious second choice. But I think what Prime Minister Modi said at the Semicon India 2023 was, and that was an emphatic statement, that I think the world is moving from saying why India to why not India. So I think this whole change in stance becomes very, very critical when we talk about manufacturing in India. That the game has to move from questioning India and saying why India to India being an obvious choice and hey, why not India? So that is something that we are hopeful will begin to happen as as more and more serious players show interest, and beyond interest, once we see the first few tranches of investment coming in, then hopefully it'll lead way for others to follow.
All right.
So if you look at Vedanta, Anil Agarwal saying that we are looking for a technology partner, Foxconn saying we are looking for a technology partner, Vedanta saying that we will be up and running in 2.5 years, Micron saying its overall plant is likely to be $2.75 billion. With all of this coming together, I think we should eventually, by end of this year or so, reach that inflection point that some of the, or the tipping point rather, that some of these MOUs or some of these vision statements actually translate to real investments.
Right.
And that is going to be the game changer, especially in the context of what is happening geopolitically in the region right now, with China being the enemy number one of the world, with Taiwan and China in a state of conflict, China not wanting to part with its rare earth minerals, metals to the rest of the world to manufacture semiconductors, US not wanting its technology to go into China. I think India fits in well as, you know, the next best friend of the US right now, or perhaps, you know, among the most favored friends right now. So I think it's time now to milk that opportunity.
Okay, time to milk that opportunity, and the big conference that is happening for all semiconductor players, stakeholders who've gathered, each one of them, including Prime Minister, who addressed the inaugural session of the Semicon India 2023 conference. Let's quickly listen into what Prime Minister said before we move on.
भारत अपनी ग्लोबल रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी को भली भांति समझता है, इसलिए साथी देशों के साथ मिलकर हम एक व्यापक रोड मैप पर काम कर रहे हैं। इसलिए हम भारत में एक वाइब्रेंट सेमीकंडक्टर इकोसिस्टम निर्माण के पीछे पूरी ताकत लगा रहे हैं। हाल ही में हमने नेशनल क्वांटम मिशन को अप्रूव किया है। नेशनल रिसर्च फाउंडेशन बिल भी संसद में पेश होने जा रहा है। सेमीकंडक्टर इकोसिस्टम बनाने के लिए अब हम अपने इंजीनियरिंग करिकुलम में भी बदलाव कर रहे हैं। भारत में 300 से ज्यादा ऐसे बड़े कॉलेजों की पहचान की गई है जहां सेमीकंडक्टर पर कोर्स उपलब्ध होंगे। हमारा चिप्स टू स्टार्टअप प्रोग्राम इंजीनियरों की मदद करेगा। अनुमान यह है कि अगले 5 वर्षों में हमारे यहां 1 लाख से ज्यादा डिजाइन इंजीनियर तैयार होने वाले हैं। भारत का लगातार बढ़ता स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम भी सेमीकंडक्टर सेक्टर को मजबूती देने वाला है। हम जो इंसेंटिव दे रहे थे उसे बढ़ाया गया है। अब टेक्नोलॉजी फर्म्स को भारत में सेमीकंडक्टर मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फैसिलिटी स्थापित करने के लिए 50% की फाइनेंशियल असिस्टेंस दी जाएगी।
All right, that's Prime Minister Modi there speaking at Semicon conference in in Gandhinagar, in Gujarat, the place where we could perhaps see India's first semiconductor fab being set up in years to come. We will keep bringing you those updates.